cold, blustery wind bringing in the feed from the North Sea, bringing in the cloud and the rain, and the winds picking up in the southwest, as I said, through the night. A blustery day for southwest England and South Wales, a wet start for South Wales. That band of rain moves northwards, and then a whole host of more showers come in here too. The ground is saturated, so extra rain hasn't really got anywhere to go. A lot of spray, a lot of surface water on the roads through the course of tomorrow afternoon and through the evening rush hour. That rain moving into northern England and Northern Ireland. Something a bit drier in between, as I said, with some shelter. Northwest Scotland not doing bad for dry weather during the course of tomorrow. It's a similar picture on Saturday. We've still got low pressure nearby, gusty winds, plenty of showers for Wales and southwest England. Continued risk of flooding here, as there is in eastern Scotland, as the wet weather continues, and still further snow on the hills, and still a brisk wind, making it feel chilly. All the weather warnings on the Met Office website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
Hi, I'm Jane. I won £54,321 with the Great British Giveaway. Oh, definitely please enter. It is real, and that one text has just made my life 100% better.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
Government said that they were looking to open large sites in Crowborough and Inverness. When will they open?
As soon as we're satisfied that they're ready, we need to make sure that they're suitable and that all the necessary checks have been carried out.
Migrants have started moving into a former army barracks in an East Sussex town despite fierce opposition from locals. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said today Crowborough is just the start, as she promised to bring forward site after site until all asylum hotels are closed. Does the government fundamentally misunderstand the British public on this issue? Also tonight.
This man has to be our next Prime Minister because our country needs reform.
A big week for Andrew Rosendale after his dramatic defection to Reform just 48 hours after Kemi Badenoch promised no more senior Tories would make the move. He will join me live in the studio to discuss the whirlwind of his first few days as a Reform MP. Is it now or never for Andy Burnham? Labour MP Andrew Gwynn has stood down after previously having the whip removed for offensive messages. Should Sir Keir Starmer be worried about a leadership challenge? And would a by-election go down to the wire with even the Green Party, heaven help us, in contention? And finally...
Harry, how confident
Good morning, Harry. How are you?
Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, became emotional yesterday after an intense day of evidence. He continues to take on the tabloids. This time, it's action against the publisher of the Daily Mail in the High Court. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most preternaturally perspicacious panel, the Deputy Chairman of Kensington Chelsea Conservatives, Natasha Tannous, and the former political director to Sir Keir Starmer, Luke Sullivan. As always, let me know what you think, mailmog at gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the news bulletin with the most sesquipedalian newsreader, Sam Francis.
Jacob, thank you. Always a pleasure. 8 o'clock is my favourite hour of the day. The top story, Donald Trump has launched a new push for global peace, telling world leaders in Davos it could help bring what he called lasting peace to the Middle East and beyond. While standing alongside leaders from nearly 20 countries, the US president said his new Board of Peace would work with the United Nations and could become one of the most powerful international groups, he says, ever created. But the UK has refused to sign up, with Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper telling MPs there are legal concerns and unease about the possible involvement of Russia's Vladimir Putin. Britain says, though, it supports peace efforts, just not this one and not yet. While repeating his familiar claims, Mr. Trump said the world is seeing progress, insisting multiple wars have already been settled, with another one coming soon.
And, of course, the war in Gaza, which is really coming to an end. We have little fires that we'll put out, but they're little. They were giant, massive fires, and now they're down to little fires. And many have said that if Hamas doesn't do what they promised they would do, and I think they probably will, but they were born with rifles in their hands, they were literally born. The first day they had a rifle put into their hands. But they have to give up their weapons, and if they don't do that, it's going to be the end of them.
Well, that comes as the row over Greenland is now cooling, but the focus is turning instead to what happens next. At Chequers today, Sir Keir Starmer met Denmark's Prime Minister just a day after Donald Trump dropped his threat of tariffs linked to Greenland. Sir Keir Starmer said that a U-turn was a good thing after weeks of tension that brought the US and Europe close to a trade war, and said the priority now is practical cooperation on Arctic security.
Now we can get on with the job of rolling up our sleeves and answering the question, how to improve security in the Arctic, which everybody agrees with. We will do that in the way we've got through the last few days from a UK point of view, which is with British pragmatism, British common sense, and a British adherence and sticking to our values and principles.
In other news tonight, the Home Secretary says Britain should never have housed asylum seekers in hotels. That as the first migrants have moved into a former military barracks in East Sussex. 27 men have arrived at Crowborough training camp with plans for the site to eventually house up to 500 people as the government tries to phase out hotel use. Shabana Mahmood says using military sites is essential to fixing what she described as a costly and chaotic system, and has vowed to defend the decision against any legal challenge. But the move has sparked anger locally, with the council considering court action and residents raising concern. Well, a by-election is now firmly on the horizon in Greater Manchester, and it could clear a path back to Westminster for Andy Burnham. Former Labour Minister Andrew Gwynn has confirmed he will be standing down as MP for Gorton and Denton for medical reasons. Mr Gwynn was previously sacked from government and suspended from the Labour Party over racist and sexist WhatsApp messages. Asked whether he would support Mr Burnham running in a by-election, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer declined to comment, saying the party would decide the process. Mr Burnham, though, says he's in the dark about any plans and insists he remains focused on Greater Manchester. Policing in England and Wales is set for its biggest shake-up in decades. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, planning to slash the number of police forces, cutting the current 43 down to fewer, possibly just a dozen so-called mega-forces. Ministers say the current system is bloated, inconsistent and struggling to tackle serious and organised crime, arguing that where you live shouldn't decide how well you're protected. Local neighbourhood teams would still exist, though, focusing on everyday crimes like shoplifting and phone theft. But the overhaul could take years, with full changes not expected until the next Parliament. Well, those are the latest headlines. It is now time for your second favourite part of the day. It's State of the Nation with Jacob.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Overnight, under the cover of darkness, the first minibus carrying a group of migrants was escorted by police to the former army barracks in Crowborough. A total of 27 male illegal immigrants arrived last night as the Home Office presses ahead with plans to house eventually up to 540 on the base, despite months of protests by furious locals. Campaign groups have cited hundreds of crimes committed by illegal immigrants in asylum accommodation across the UK as cause for concern. Some of these charges include rapes, sexual assaults and even murder. The Prime Minister was asked about the use of barracks in Crowborough specifically at the Liaison Committee in December.
Government said that they were looking to open large sites in Crowborough and Inverness by the end of November. They've not opened yet. When will they open?
As soon as we're satisfied that they're ready, but we have got military sites under consideration. Obviously, we need to make sure that they're suitable and that all the necessary checks have been carried out. But we do want, asylum hotels were at their height measured, I think it was 400 or so. They're down to about 200 now. I'm absolutely determined that we will close them by the end of this Parliament.
The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, echoed a similar sentiment today, saying that illegal migration has been placing immense pressure on communities, and that is why we're closing asylum holes that are blighting communities. She says that Crowborough is just the start, adding that she will bring forward site after site until every asylum hotel is closed and returned to local communities. And this shows exactly where the government is so fundamentally misunderstanding the problem and public opinion on this issue. Labour think that the British public are upset about asylum hotels specifically. They think that by moving migrants into former military sites, such as those in Wethersfield, in Crowborough and possibly now in Inverness too, among others, that are being considered, that the public will suddenly no longer worry about illegal immigration. But that's just not the case. This is not to mention the extension of houses in multiple occupancy, moving groups of illegal migrants into the heart of towns and cities across the country. The great British public know that this entire system is an affront to their inherent sense of fairness. Illegal migrants are being rewarded for cutting the queue, breaking our laws and undermining the integrity of the country. What we want is not the closing of hotels per se, but an end to illegal immigration. They want to stop the boats, and they want a redefinition of what a refugee is, because it's currently ridiculous, as under the Convention, we will always grant asylum to most of the people who come over in boats. They will then be here to stay. So Keir Starmer is being fanciful when he pretends he wants to remove those with no right to be here, because almost everyone who comes does end up with the right to be here unless we change our agreement on the Convention. Look at what he had to say.
So mark my words. We will stop this. We will smash the gangs. We will crack down on illegal working. We will remove people with no right to be here. And we will secure Britain's borders.
Well, I've marked his words, and he's got 0 out of 10, because as the Centre for Policy Studies found, most people who get here will qualify for refugee status because 780 million people in the world would notionally be able to do so under the 1951 Convention. And this is crazy. Crowborough is a small community. What was the Home Secretary saying? She wanted to protect communities. Yes, but what about Crowborough? That's a community too. And the army base, which used to train 6,000 Army and RAF cadets every year, as well as the police and fire training, will now simply have illegal immigrants in it. And if Crowborough is just the start, then it's clear the British public and their views are being ignored. Stop the boats is what we need, not stop the hotels. That's the secondary issue. As always, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. But joining me now is founder and organiser of Crowborough Patrol, Nick Jones. Mr. Jones, thank you for joining me. What has been the government's defence of using Crowborough to house illegal asylum seekers?
Well, all we've been told is they want to move them out of hotels and move them into our army camp. But any questions we've been putting forward to the Home Office are unanswered. We've had many questions put to them. For instance, we wanted to know what was happening with the armoury. We didn't hear anything about that. We'd like to have known if that's been cleared out or not. 600 men rioting and breaking into an armoury with live weapons would be quite worrying.
Do you know if the people there will be free to go in and out of the camp, or if they will have to be in there?
Yeah, they will be free to walk in and out. Yeah, I think if they go missing for a week, they just put them down as missing. But they could go for a week at a time, before there's any sort of alarm raised.
Well, tell me about Crowborough, because I went to visit an immigration hotel in Somerset, which was in the most rural area, only accessible by country lanes. What is Crowborough like? Is it near a town? Is it a big conurbation, or is it quite a small village?
So Crowborough is a small town, 22,000 population. There's not an awful lot for people, to do outside. There's a lot of farms that surround Crowborough. We've got a leisure centre. But the cadets was one of the main things that the young people could do in this town, was take part in that. I was a scout leader here for 9 years, so there's scouting for them to do, but there's not much for young men to do in Crowborough, unless they just like walking in the countryside. But there's not really many amenities, so it's very unsuitable.
And what steps can the community take to oppose this? I know the County Council isn't very sympathetic.
OK, so there's a group called Crowborough Shield who started a legal campaign and have been raising funds to fight the government on many points, from the fact that they haven't actually done an assessment survey of the town and how it'll affect people, and other things such as the effect on the forest, where we've got many endangered species such as the Dartford warbler, and the extra footfall on the forest could damage that. From my point of view, we've formed a patrol that will patrol the town just to keep people safe, just to step in if there's any trouble. We've now got 50 people on board. We are trying to raise funds still. We've got a crowdfunder on our Facebook page, Crowborough Patrol, so it'd be great if people could donate to that. We have body cams to buy and utility vests, torches and insurances to buy. There's lots of stuff, so please donate to our crowdfunder.
And so basically you're so worried about this that you're creating a vigilante group in Sussex, of all places.
No, we're not a vigilante group. We're more to trying to provide reassurance for people. I mean, we're mainly men over the age of 40, and many of us 50 and 60 for myself. We're not a vigilante group. That's just nonsense. But yes, that's what a lot of left-wing people will be trying to aim at us, but that's not the case.
All right, well, I wish you every success in your campaign against this terrible imposition. Thank you very much. Well, I'm joined now by my panel, the Deputy Chairman of Kensington Chelsea Conservatives, Natasha Tanis, and the former Political Director, Keir Starmer. Luke, let me come to you first, because it seems to me that Labour just doesn't get it, that it's not about the hotels, it's about the people coming over in boats.
Look, first, thank you for having me, and it was really interesting to hear from your guest there. I think that's unfair. Labour does get it. Labour was elected on a manifesto to deal with the issues of illegal immigration, to make sure that this ludicrous position where 400 hotels that people up and down the country used to go and see and have their most special family occasions, weddings, that were being used to house illegal asylum seekers who, many had arrived on our shores, and obviously we have a duty to deal with, the Labour government was dealt with. Now, I think we are conflating two different things. The Labour Party and this Labour government, as Shabana Mahmood today, is not saying this is this is the solution. Recognise it's many different parted fixes are going to need to... But this is part of the solution, which is getting these young people...
All right, let's look at what Shabana Mahmood said, because she said illegal migration has been placing immense pressure on communities, and that is why we're closing asylum hotels that are blighting communities. But former army camps blight communities just as much, possibly even more, because the numbers in them are bigger.
Well, there is obviously always going to be problems and local opposition to where you house and process and make sure that they go through our legal processes, asylum seekers who are seeking refuge here. I think the problem is always going to be there are people who will think a site is not the right one. I think what the government have done quite rightly here is say we need to get these people out of hotels and put them in sites that are better located and fixed and suitable for dealing with people.
But Natasha, if they smashed the gangs and stopped people coming in, they wouldn't need these bases either.
I think there's no good place to house illegal migrants. I think the only good place is to put them on the first flight out of the UK. And the only way to do that is to leave the ECHR, to repeal the Human Rights Act, and to control our borders. And the only way to control our borders is by controlling our laws. And I think Labour still hasn't understood that. Shabana Mahmood is just giving another location. And as he rightly said, the guest, you cannot, it's not going to protect the communities, and they don't even have the infrastructure to support 500 adult men.
They've got nothing for them to do when they get there. And Donald Trump has shown that you can stop illegal immigration. If this government wanted to follow his procedures, then illegal immigration could stop. He's stopped illegal immigration across the Mexican border. It's an amazing achievement.
Well, I mean, he's obviously had an impact and effect in the US. I think what we are dealing with here is a Labour government that has only been in 18 months. I think, many of these sites were put as Conservatives. The Conservative government had put a number of these sites and never followed through with them.
We're just going to have the Epping case all over again. That's what we're going to get. We're going to have the Bell Hotel, everything that happened. Remember the person who assaulted, 3 counts of assault, even a 14-year-old girl. We're going to have exactly that all over again. This is. I mean,
that was a horrendous case, and that man was rightly prosecuted and has subsequently been
escaped
deported.
from prison. By the way.
And I think nobody thinks that was that was an egregious error that happened. But he was apprehended and he was immediately deported.
So we don't have a solution. We still don't have a solution.
But I think
relocation is not a solution.
I think what is happening here, and this is a first step in trying to get the problem, which was these hotels in major high streets on people's locations. Yes, absolutely. I think as that man said,
the bigger problem is people coming in the first place.
Yes.
And as long as we're under the Convention on Human Rights, we can't do anything about it. And Labour is more committed to the Convention on Human Rights, particularly the Attorney General and the Prime Minister, than dealing with this problem.
No, I fundamentally disagree with that. I think, first things first, you have to deal with the hotels, because hotels are a pull factor. And I think from those pictures, and apologies if that wasn't the whole of the Crowborough site, I don't think anybody would say, frankly, that those were, attractive scenes and accommodation for people to be living in. It's right to deal with the hotels. You have to deal with that. You have to fix the system piece by piece, and that is what this government is doing.
I'm worried we don't have to have a right of reply from the Sussex Tourist Board. I said Crowborough is not such a nice place to be.
I meant the army base explicitly. But also, on the ECHR, look, there are different views on that. What this government is doing is, this is an issue that is a lot of European nations are dealing with, and the Prime Minister and the Attorney General and Shabana Mahmood have put forward some reforms to the ECHR that they think will deal with some of these legal issues.
The issue is the judicial activism, and the judicial activism will still happen even if you start to try to amend the convention. You're still going to get there.
Yeah, well, I happen to agree with that, but there we go. Thank you to my panel. In a moment, it's been a big week for Andrew Rosindell after his dramatic defection to Reform just 48 hours after Kemi Badenoch promised no more senior Tories would make the move. He will join me in the studio next to discuss the whirlwind of his first few days as a member of Reform. Thank you very much.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Prince William is the most popular member of the royal family, according to the latest tracker from YouGov. January 2026 ratings followed very closely by his wife, the Princess of Wales. They've got favourability ratings of 74% and 77% respectively even. Princess Anne number 3, the King number 4. Now, Meghan and Andrew, where do you think they were?
Who's below which one? That's the question. I think Andrew's at the bottom.
Andrew is at the very bottom. It's his lowest ever favourability rating. Just 3% of the British public have a positive view of Prince Andrew.
3% have a positive... Still
3%.
But hang on, there is a principle in polling called the lizard man constant.
Oh,
now, this is that you will always find between 3 and 5% of any poll that says something ridiculous, like lizard men are running the world.
OK.
4%, I think, was the percentage of Obama voters in America who believed Obama was the Antichrist. I mean, it's the sort of nonsense noise that you get in a poll. It's usually 3-4%.
Well, you know,
talking of nonsense noise,
I mean, Andrew, you know, he's still a grandfather and he's still a father. Anyway, Meghan also had her worst favourability ratings ever, 19%. But the thing that struck me in this polling is that 64% of Brits think we should continue to have monarchy, but only half think it's value for when eventually he does become king. I suspect there's going to be a lot of cost-saving measures when it comes to how the royal family is funded. There's 500 staff, just over, which are funded by the sovereign grant, which is basically our money. You know, tens of millions a year that the sovereign grant costs us. So maybe he'll take a look at that, but I am assured that he will continue the big staple traditions that give us the USP for Great Britain. The coronation, trooping the colour, that's all staying.
That's the thing. I think the Spanish royal family is less popular than ours because they all wear suits and ties all the time. They don't have the big coronation. They don't have the pomp and circumstance. What makes our royal family so special and unique is all of the silly hats and the gold and the jewels.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Well, welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is State of the Nation. It's been a busy week for my next guest, the MP for Romford, Andrew Rosindell, or the MP for Rosendale, Andrew Romford, as some people think he is, who dramatically defected to Reform on Sunday evening, just 48 hours after Kemi Badenoch promised that no more senior members of her team would jump ship. He cited Tory failure to hold the government to account on the Chagos issue as one of the main reasons for his departure, but said it was time to put country before party and unite behind Nigel Farage. Meanwhile, Labour Party chairman Anna Turley said the stench of a failed and dying Tory party now engulfs Reform. Well, I can't smell anything here. So, Andrew, welcome. Thank you very much for coming in. Somebody said to me that you were essentially a member of Reform before Nigel Farage. So, in a way, why did it take you so long?
So I've argued for reform-style policies within the Conservative Party forever, to be honest. And frankly, since Margaret Thatcher went, the party's never been quite right. And I think you might feel the same. We just haven't got to grips with the things that matter to the British people. And we lost our way as a party. I just think enough is enough. And I think that the time has come to say to the British people, we do need something different. And I think Nigel's the man to do that.
But don't we need the right to unite under one brand to come together, to work together, and that what we're risking at the moment is allowing in at the next election a coalition where Zach Polanski will be a leading light.
But Jacob, I've argued this point over and over again in the last few months. You know, I sat at party conference in the GBNews studio. I was asked, would Nigel Farage make a good Prime Minister? I said, no, he'd make an excellent Prime Minister. I talked about uniting the right, stopping this progressive left-wing group coming together, which is a danger to our country. Labour, Liberals, SNP, Greens, Plaid Cymru, and goodness knows who else. It's calamity for Britain if that happens. So we do need to unite the right, but it's got to be with Nigel Farage as our Prime Minister, because he's the only one that seems to have a determination to do anything serious.
But if the right united, couldn't the voters decide that? If we had a coupon election or something like that, and then if Nigel won more seats, as with David Cameron in 2010, you'd organise it that way. If Kemi won more seats, you'd organise it that way.
Look, I've argued for Kemi and Nigel to talk. I went to see Kemi in October after the conference. I said to her, look, Kemi, please talk to Nigel, build up a relationship. Let's start the discussions, because ultimately, under our electoral system, you can't have two Conservative parties.
Absolutely right. And she
didn't do it.
Is Nigel more open to that than Kemi? Is that what you're telling me?
I think Nigel, like all of us now, are frustrated that the Conservative Party had 14 years in power, with honourable exceptions like yourself, Jacob. They failed the country. And I think it's time for the Conservative Party to realise that they're going to have to, at the very least, play second fiddle now. And it's Nigel's time to get this country in a better place. And I think he'll do that.
Now, you've always had a reputation for being a phenomenally hard-working constituency member of Parliament. Why I made the joke about whether you were called Romford or Rosendale, that you're so strongly identified with your constituency. One thing I'm really surprised about, possibly with you more than the others, is you haven't felt necessary to go back to them for a by-election to say, look, I stood as a Conservative, I got 15,339 votes, of which quite a lot were because I wore a blue rosette. You now have the right to say, we want you as Reform, which as it happens, I think they would, or you don't. Why haven't you done that?
So I want there to be an election. I want a general election. I don't want lots of by-elections.
Yeah, but there's not going to be. That's
wasting time, wasting money on by-elections.
That's the only time you've given me a politician's answer. Well, that won't do. You have the ability to apply for Chiltern Hundreds and go back to your voters. The general election is up to Keir Starmer. He's not going to give one.
So I've discussed this with Nigel, and Nigel believes that it is not in anyone's interests to waste time on by-elections, that we should focus on the main prize, which is building a strong Reform Party to win the next election and to get the socialist government out. If we have lots of by-elections, because why have it in one constituency but not in all of them?
Well, because you're the ones who've changed. And constitutionally...
Constitutionally, you don't need one.
No, you don't need to.
You elect a person, not a party.
Our constitution evolves, and you and I know perfectly well that it has evolved in a way that we get elected on our party, not on our individual charm. Your vote would not have gone down so much at the last election from the previous election if they'd been voting on you. It was a Conservative result, not an Andrew Rosendale result. And that's why I'm surprised you haven't felt you had to go back, as, of course, Douglas Carswell and Mark Reckless did when they changed.
That was UKIP, Jacob,
yes, I know.
And they had a different policy. If Nigel said to me, Andrew, we want you to have a by-election, I'm now part of a new party, I'm not going to start rebelling against my party leader that quick. He has made it clear that by-elections are a distraction, that the real thing we need now is a general election. I agree with that.
You were always very independent-minded as a Conservative and took the whip as advisory, which, of course, it's technically an attendance whip rather than a voting whip. Do you intend to do the same in Reform? Do you intend to make sure that you represent your views and your constituents rather than the party line, with the exception of this by-election?
I think that's what's exciting about Reform, is that there are people there that are independently minded, they've got strong views, they're passionate, they believe in things. The problem with the Conservative Party, a lot of people, I'm afraid, were only believing in their own progression and careers, collecting, apologise, Jacob, but there was too many people queuing up for knighthoods and damehoods and peerages.
I didn't want a damehood.
Well,
I'm not that modern.
Junior positions where the civil servants are really running the show. I watched this conveyor belt of careerists coming in and out, and people that believed in what I believed in until they were given some title or a position. I'm bored with that. I think the public are bored with that.
Andrew,
we want people to conviction.
Dare I say, aren't you being a little naive, that if Reform were suddenly to have 350 MPs, there would be a significant number of them who were careerists. And dare I say that 1 or 2 people who have joined Reform recently have not expressed your views consistently for 45 years, and they might be quite careerist too.
You may have a point there about 1 or 2 individuals, mentioning no names, but the one difference, Jacob, is that the Conservative Party as an institution, I think people join it and they become part of that conveyor belt. The exciting about Reform is that people are wanting to join, they're wanting to get involved because they've got beliefs and they want to see the country changed.
But you and I both have very strong beliefs. And isn't this the conundrum of politics, always? That to implement your strong beliefs, or as many of them as possible, you have to win elections. And to win elections, you know that some of your strong beliefs are ones that the electorate just has no truck with. And therefore you have to focus on what you can do rather than the ethereal things that will never happen and will stop you doing the good that you could do. And this is the general tension of politics.
I do agree with you completely, but there's a great example of someone who managed to get things done, who was pragmatic when they needed to be, but when it mattered, had a clear vision for the country, and that person was Margaret Thatcher.
Absolutely, but
we should take a leaf out of her book.
But she was ambitious. She tacked in the 1970s as Education Secretary. She closed grammar schools, more grammar schools than Shirley Williams closed. So she was very much in the category of a principled politician who knew when to be pragmatic. And I just wonder whether, as Reform gets bigger, actually it will be exactly the same as other parties in this respect.
I don't know what the future holds. What I do know is the country is broken at the moment and we need radical change. We need a Margaret Thatcher figure. We don't have a Margaret Thatcher figure. The best, the nearest we've got, I think, is Nigel, because he spent his entire life standing up for Britain, fighting things he believes in and not being tied to the political establishment. I'm excited by the prospect that Nigel will be our next Prime Minister, and I think a lot of my constituents are as well.
And do you think he can manage that? Because I had Sir John Curtis on yesterday, who was saying that Reform is brilliant at getting the Brexit vote, but it can't get 100% of it. That's about 40% of the vote, and that the peak for Reform is about 32%. Coming back to what I was saying at the beginning, how do you get there without uniting the right? And do you think your move helps make uniting the right more or less likely?
So I think that under our electoral system, you're going to get strange results with a split vote, particularly with the Greens now doing so well and splitting the Labour vote, the Liberals doing rather well too, Conservative Reform. I mean, goodness knows how the cookie is going to crumble at the next election. My main concern is that I wake up the day after the general election, there's a right of centre majority. If it is Reform in government with a majority, I will be celebrating. But if Nigel has to work with some Conservatives, maybe the Unionists in Northern Ireland, to rescue our country, and that's why I've defected, because I believe in this country, I love this country, and I want to put country before party, and I don't think that was being achieved within the Conservative Party, sadly.
Luke, if I can just ask you, we hear rumours that some Labour Party figure is about to come to Reform. Do you think Reform can embrace both Andrew and people on the left of politics at the same time?
We'll have to see. I mean, I would be very surprised if there isn't a Labour figure who joins Reform. I think if I was Nigel Farage and the Reform leadership, I would be spending probably a lot of my time trying to get somebody who was credibly they can try and argue is a senior Labour person. And I think if they can't do that, that is probably a problem. I think listening to Andrew, and I don't know what your viewers will make of it. I think your opening remark was absolutely spot on. I think nobody was surprised when Andrew crossed the floor. But I think there's a difference between the Conservatives or people who have joined Reform like Andrew and somebody like Robert Jenrick, who I don't understand, and I think this is the danger for Reform, is how do they straddle saying that the anti-establishment party, the Labour Party or the Conservatives are to blame for the problems, and then continue to bring in, and I recognise Andrew, I think, is a slightly different character, but figures like Robert Jenrick, I think that potentially will cause them problems in the long run.
Do you have an answer to that, Andrew? And I mean, I think everyone agrees that you were always reform, really.
I've always had the same views. I've never changed. I've never been willing to alter my principles in order just to gain some kind of junior position or whatever. The point of being in politics, if you do that, you're there because you believe in things. Now, I have to say, I think Robert is a first-class person, and I think he himself accepts that in those early days when he was a minister, he made mistakes, he followed David Cameron. He repudiates that now. The scales drop from his eyes. He admits he was radicalised by the blob, trying to be a minister when, you know, you're surrounded by people that tell you why you cannot do things. He became radicalised, and he's been on a journey, but he's made the right decisions. And I think that he's realised, as I've realised, that the Conservative Party is just not going to be radical enough. The country needs serious reform, and Nigel's the man to do it.
I mean, I would say the difference there is, I don't think you have changed your views. I think the difference with Robert Jenrick is he seems to have changed his views, or says he's changed his views, and when he joined, had to do this sort of bizarre loyalty oath to Nigel and reform, which you didn't have to do.
Anyway, we've got to move on, because is it now or never for Andy Burnham? Labour MP Andrew Gwynn has stood down after previously having the whip removed for offensive messages. So, should Sir Keir be worried about a leadership challenge? And would a by-election go to the Greens, Reform or Labour? Who might Gwynn it, you could say, I suppose. Thank you. And my puns.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Much of Europe at the moment looking as unsettled as the UK. Spells of heavy rain for Greece, windy in Iberia, and those strong winds also containing cold air. So they're going to bring showers and longer spells of rain to Portugal in particular during Friday, with some hill and mountain snow as a consequence. Rain easing off for a time across Italy, but further spells of wet weather expected into the weekend, and we've got a lot of showers, heavy downpours throughout much of Greece. Fresh snow, though, for the Alps.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. I've got more wind, more rain and more weather warnings to tell you about. It's been a very soggy day for some, and the rain continuing to fall in eastern Scotland from this weather front. There's another one draped across Wales and Northern Ireland, and this low now approaching from the southwest is going to bring more rain and strong winds into the southwest later tonight. Yellow warnings in place across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The rain turning increasingly to snow over the hills in eastern Scotland, with the wind blowing that snow in. That means blizzards on parts of the A9. The next band of rain tracking northwards into parts of South Wales and southwest England, getting very gusty here through the night as well. Temperatures mostly holding up a few degrees above freezing. On to Friday, it's looking a little drier, certainly initially for Northern Ireland, but a wet start for the south of Wales, much of southeast England. Soggy again for most of Scotland. A rain warning remains in place, although, as I said, increasingly over the hills turning to snow. Over the Western Highlands, actually, for many it'll be dry through much of Friday. Some sunny spells here, but a cold, blustery wind bringing in the feed from the North Sea, bringing in the cloud and the rain, and the winds picking up in the southwest, as I said, through the night. A blustery day for southwest England and South Wales. A wet start for South Wales. That band of rain moves northwards, and then a whole host of more showers come in here too. The ground is saturated, so extra rain hasn't really got anywhere to go. A lot of spray, a lot of surface water on the roads through the course of tomorrow afternoon and through the evening rush hour. That rain moving into northern England and Northern Ireland. Something a bit drier in between, as I said, with some shelter. Northwest Scotland not doing bad for dry weather during the course of tomorrow. It's a similar picture on Saturday. We've still got low pressure nearby, gusty winds, plenty of showers for Wales and southwest England. Continued risk of flooding here, as there is in eastern Scotland, as the wet weather continues, and still further snow on the hills, and still a brisk wind, making it feel chilly. All the weather warnings on the Met Office website.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
you're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Andrew Gwynn, the former health minister who had the Labour whip removed from him over offensive WhatsApp messages, has now stood down as a Member of Parliament. This could pave the way for Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham to seek a return to the House of Commons. It's understood he held talks last year, this is Burnham and Gwynn, about a by-election in his Gorton and Denton seat, but the discussions apparently stopped before Christmas. According to earlier predictions, it would be a closely fought three-horse race between Reform, Labour and the Greens. So is it now or never for Burnham? And is this Keir Starmer's worst nightmare? Well, my panel is with me, I'm glad to say, Natasha Tanus and the former political director, Keir Starmer, whose name we're determined not to put on the autocue, but I now know is Luke Sullivan. So I'm sorry about that.
That's
They
all right,
won't put you on my sheet. Natasha, I'm going to come to you first.
Okay.
Because it seems to me that now Burnham must put up or shut up, mustn't he? That this just has to happen.
Yes, and it looks like Keir Starmer is like under assault from all sides. Like you have now West treating Angela Rayner, and now you also have Andy Burnham. And first of all, as you just mentioned, it's not a clear cut that he would win. I mean, it's going to be a fight against Reform. But Keir Starmer is better than Andy Burnham, like in the sense that he's less left-wing, as you know, and we would have a bigger tax and spend doom loop under Andy Burnham. So.
Well, Andy Burnham's whatever policy is welcome that day, isn't he? I mean, he makes opportunism look the natural state for a politician.
He just wants to tax the rich, and it's just worse.
But he was a great Blairite, so he's the Vicar of Bray in Good King Charles's golden days, etc. Come on, are you going to defend Burnham?
Andy is Andy is somebody who is a friend, and he is a great Labour talent. But I look at this slightly differently. I think first things first, I think it's, from Andrew Gwynn's statement today, I think he's conducted himself, obviously a terrible thing has happened, he's taken responsibility. I think anybody seeing that statement hopefully recognises the pressures that people who live in public life put themselves on, and it's very, very sad to hear. I don't think it is straightforward that Andy Burnham puts up or shuts up, actually. There are two big reasons why he currently isn't eligible to be a candidate. First is legally, he has got police and crime powers, so if he was to run and be successful, he would have to cause a by-election for the Greater Manchester Mayor, and he's clearly doing a big job, but I think that would be a political problem that he would have to explain. And the other is the Labour Party rulebook, which makes clear that Metro mayors, which Andy is, aren't eligible to stand. Now, it's completely understandable why Westminster is focused on the politics.
Yes, but Andy Burnham raised this at the Labour Party conference, didn't he? He went to the Labour Party conference putting forward himself as a future leader.
But he's never made any doubt. He's never made any doubt.
No, but all of these obstacles are ones that can be overcome if he thinks he can win the by-election. So basically it's going to come down to whether he thinks he can win the by-election.
Well, I mean, I think... I think he has to, and we don't know what he wants to do, I think he's put, what would be fairly said as a sort of holding statement out, and there may have been developments in the last hour or so, but he's put a holding statement out. Look, I think he is clearly a talent for the Labour Party, but there is a question for the Labour Party and for Andy, where is his best use? Is it staying as the Mayor of Greater Manchester, or does he think he needs to run for this seat? And there are obviously other very talented people in the Labour Party.
It would be a disaster to have him as leader of the party and to have him as Prime Minister today. I mean, we're just going to end up with 1979, the winter of discontent. We're already in a horrible situation with this doom loop that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have done. They're financially illiterate. Everything they've done, from the budget last year to the budget this year as well, has been detrimental. What are they going to say to the family of the farmer that committed committed suicide because of the farming tax, of the inheritance tax on farmers. What are they going to say to Rhiannon White? Sorry, the families of Rhiannon White that was killed by an illegal migrant. Everything they've pledged in their manifesto, they haven't done. They said they would change. They haven't changed anything. They blamed 14 years of Conservative government, and they're doing infighting, which is what they were blaming the Tories for doing. They said that they would be pro-growth. They haven't done anything. Growth is down. Inflation is up. Unemployment is up. I mean, they haven't achieved anything. They have broken every manifesto. They've played on words, obviously. They said they wouldn't hike inheritance tax, wouldn't hike national insurance, but they did it like from a back door, right? They employer NICs, they've threshold frozen. So it's a disaster of a government. But
therefore, shouldn't they have somebody new if it's such a disaster?
There isn't a vacancy, and I think we are jumping
pretty close to it, though, isn't it?
No, I don't think there is.
You see the vultures circling around.
It's politics. It's politics, and there are always people who are going to be ambitious. Andy has never made any secret of his desire to run. He's run for the leadership a couple of times before.
Unsuccessfully, and changed his views to meet the requirements of the time, doesn't he?
What I would say is, actually...
You're accusing Jenny
let me tell you, the Labour civil war is on the way.
Burnham could teach people about opportunism.
He's in the same party that he believes.
All right, sorry to cut you off, but I think we are going to have to move on. Thank you to my brilliant panel, particularly to Luke, whose name wasn't on my auto cue. Anyway, it's now ingrained in my mind. Prince Harry became emotional yesterday after an intense day of evidence. He continues to take on the tabloids, this time in his action against the publisher of the Daily Mail in the High Court.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Do you trust what you're being told?
Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth. laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, became emotional after an intense day of evidence against the publisher of the Daily Mail yesterday, telling the High Court his wife Meghan's life had been made an absolute misery. We're watching the case closely is the royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, who joins me now. Richard, thank you for coming in. This is obviously a tremendously important case for the Duke of Sussex.
It is indeed, because he's had two victories, one against the Mirror Group and then previously settlement out of court against the Sun. But in both those cases, the various newspaper groups had admitted liabilities before. In this case, the Associated Newspapers strongly disputes the allegations, which involve phone hacking, which involve bugging, a variety of, for example, illicit access of medical records, that sort of thing. So it's really absolutely pivotal. And there are 7 individuals involved, including Baroness Lawrence, including Selton John and Elizabeth Hurley.
And if he wins this case, do you think this is a route for him to come back into royal life in the United Kingdom?
I think the route back to royal life in the United Kingdom would be a very difficult path. I don't think he necessarily wants that. What he wants to do, firstly, we're awaiting the RAVEC decision of the Home Office Committee regarding security, seems he's likely to get that. In the summer, the idea appears to be to bring Meghan and also, of course, their children. I mean, Archie and Lilibet. They haven't seen King Charles in a long time. So a variety of plans are being matched here, because it'll be a year to go before Invictus next year, where in Birmingham King Charles has been apparently they've offered him to launch it. So that will put him in a very difficult position.
You're seeing a path to reconciliation, but if he loses, there's, what, a £38 million bill somebody's got to pay?
Which could, well, it could even be more, of course, depending on what the judge decides. But it would be an absolutely vast bill for everyone involved, I would have thought. A 9-week case, and there's no doubt whatever that he believes passionately. I mean, he was talking about being paranoid, the way his relationships, not only with Meghan, but with Cressida Bonus and Chelsea Davy had been affected. And we saw Elizabeth Hurley very emotional in court today.
But doesn't it turn out a lot of people's friends gossip to the press and get backhanders for it? And that's most of the problem.
This is Associated Newspapers' claim. They say that they've had intrepid journalists. They say the journalists have, in fact, they've got, as you say, friends in the right places who've given them gossip and so forth and so on. Harry strongly denies that. Well, the other aspect of this is going to be very interesting is the 6-year rule. Normally,
yes, indeed,
you would bring a case
within 6 years, and some of these have gone on.
For a long time,
absolutely. A long time.
But then there is the so-called watershed moment. This is what Associated Newspapers are going to challenge, apparently.
All right. Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to end there, because we're going over to the one and only Patrick Christys. Patrick, what have you got on your bill of fare this evening?
Oh, absolutely loads on. The star of the show is going to be Robert Jenrick, 9:30 till 10 p.m. He's going to dish the dirt on the Tory party.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. I've got more wind, more rain and more weather warnings to tell you about. It's been a very soggy day for some, and the rain continuing to fall in eastern Scotland from this weather front. There's another one draped across Wales and Northern Ireland, and this low now approaching from the southwest is going to bring more rain and strong winds into the southwest later tonight. Yellow warnings in place across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The rain turning increasingly to snow over the hills in eastern Scotland, with the wind blowing that snow in. That means blizzards on parts of the A9. The next band of rain tracking northwards into parts of South Wales and southwest England, getting very gusty here through the night as well. Temperatures mostly holding up a few degrees above freezing. On to Friday, it's looking a little drier.